I'm not going to be some polite little puppet for your ratings. Jack Nicholson didn't just walk onto a talk show stage, he annexed it. Imagine him leaning back in a plush velvet chair, those iconic dark sunglasses masking his eyes, while a cloud of cigarette smoke drifts lazily toward the expensive studio rafters. The host is sweating, the audience is gasping, and Jack is just grinning that shark-like smile. Most people watch these old clips and think they're seeing a man lose his mind or succumb to the pressures of fame. They see the erratic behavior and assume it's just the lifestyle catching up to him. But that is what they want you to believe. The truth is far more calculated. Jack Nicholson wasn't a wild card. He was the ultimate power player. He used these interviews to signal to every studio executive in Hollywood that he couldn't be tamed, bought, or scripted. It was a deliberate assertion of dominance that made him the most expensive actor on the planet. This level of industry insight isn't for everyone. If you prefer the sanitized, PR-approved version of history, this channel isn't for you, so do not subscribe. We only deal in the raw, uncomfortable facts here. The real story behind Jack's rise to talk show royalty wasn't just his talent. It traces back to a single, forgotten night on a 1970s late-night set. Before that, Jack was just another face in the crowd. But a savvy producer saw something in Jack's refusal to sit still. This producer whispered one piece of advice: never let them think they know what you're going to say next. From that moment on, Jack became a weapon. Watch the way he handles the camera. He doesn't look at the host. He looks at the lens. He treats the interview like a psychological warfare session. He interrupts the high-budget commercials. He makes the other A-list guests look like terrified children. He's not being rude. He's showing the world who really owns the room. Read between the lines during his 1980s press tours. He'd show up, barely talk about the movie, and spend 20 minutes mocking the very idea of fame. The more he disrespected the process, the more the public loved him. He cracked the code. He realized that in a world of fake smiles, the man who refuses to smile on command is king. Poring over the archives reveals the physical reality of his reign. The nervous twitches of the hosts, the way the camera operators struggled to keep up with his sudden movements, and the visible tension of the network lawyers off-camera. He was the secret catalyst for the modern celebrity era, proving that being dangerous was actually the ultimate career move. Every twitch of his eyebrow was a contract negotiation. Every long, awkward silence was a reminder that he didn't need them. They needed him. And he made sure they felt that power in every single frame. This wasn't madness. This was a masterclass in staying at the top of the food chain without ever saying thank you. Think about the last time you saw a movie star look truly uncomfortable. Now look at Jack. He never blinked first. You there, sitting at home, look at the way he holds a cigarette in those old clips. It's not a prop. It's a timer. He's telling everyone in the room that he's in control of the air they breathe. The industry wants you to believe he was just talented. That is the polished lie they feed the tourists. The truth is much darker and way more calculated. Go back to 1969. Jack was almost 32. In Hollywood years, he was a corpse. He'd spent a decade doing B-movies that nobody watched. He was a writer, a gopher, a guy who lived on the fringes of the parties he wasn't invited to. But then came the catalyst. It wasn't a script. It was a failure. A different actor walked off the set of a low-budget biker movie because the conditions were too raw. That empty chair was the spark. Jack stepped in, but he didn't play the part. He hijacked the entire production. Look at the footage from Easy Rider. He's the only person on screen who looks like he's actually having a good time while the world burns down around him. He didn't follow the marks on the floor. He made the camera find him. That's when the suits realized something terrifying. They couldn't control him, but they could sell the fact that he was uncontrollable. Read between the lines of his contracts from that era. He wasn't just getting paid for his lines. He was getting paid to be the guy who might punch a hole through the screen. Watch his eyes during the 1975 press tour for Cuckoo's Nest. He's sitting on those velvet talk show couches like he's waiting for a fight. He leans forward, invades the host's personal space, and lets out that signature grin. It's a shark move. The audience screams because they're scared, not because it's funny. Every producer in town saw those ratings and realized the old era of the polite, manicured leading man was dead. Jack didn't just kill it, he buried it under a mountain of cool. You might think this was all ego. You're being sold a fantasy. This was business. This was a man realizing that if you refuse to play by the rules eventually change to suit you. He'd show up to the Oscars wearing sunglasses in a dark room. People called it a fashion choice. It wasn't. It was a barrier. He was telling the entire world that he could see them, but they'd never see him. He was the one holding the power because he was the one who was willing to walk away from it all at any second. Look at the way he handles the press at the Cannes Film Festival. He treats the journalists like annoying flies. He gives them nothing, and they write 5-page spreads about his mystique. He understood the greatest secret in show business. The less you give, the more they want. He never begged for a role again. He waited for them to come to him, trembling with checkbooks open. This wasn't luck. This was a hostile takeover of the entire concept of fame. Now, look at the sets of his biggest films. Most actors wait in their trailers. Not Jack. He would stand right next to the camera, staring down the other actors while they tried to do their scenes. He wasn't being supportive, he was marking his territory. During the filming of The Shining, the tension was so thick you could see it in the grainy behind-the-scenes footage. He'd pace like a caged animal, swinging an actual axe to stay in character while the crew huddled in the corners. He wanted them to be afraid. He knew that a terrified crew makes for a more authentic movie. This is the part they don't teach you in acting school. It's about dominance. It's about making sure that even when the director yells action, everyone knows who is really running the show. And it worked. The money poured in. The legends grew. But the secret catalyst was always that one producer who told him to never be predictable. That one piece of advice turned a struggling actor into a cultural nuclear weapon. He didn't just change the movies, he changed the way we look at celebrities. He made us crave the danger. He made us love the villain. And he did it all while never taking those sunglasses off. He knew that as soon as you show them your eyes, you lose. So he kept us in the dark. He kept the mystery alive while he cashed the biggest checks in history. Look at the way he walked away from it all. No big retirement tour. No desperate social media posts. He just stopped. He went to the Lakers games, sat in the front row, and watched the world try to figure out what he was thinking. He won the game. He proved that the only way to truly own Hollywood is to act like you don't care if it burns to the ground. That's the real Jack Nicholson story. Not the awards, not the fame, but the cold, hard realization that being the most dangerous man in the room is the ultimate insurance policy. If you're still watching this and thinking it's just about acting, you've missed the point. This is a blueprint for power. This is how you take over an industry that wants to chew you up and spit you out. You don't ask for a seat at the table, you walk into the room, take the seat, and wait for them to try and move you. They never did. They never could. Because Jack was never just an actor. He was a force of nature that the studios had to learn to live with. And they paid him billions for the privilege of being in his orbit. That is the truth they don't want you to know. That is the secret behind the grin. It's not a smile. It's a victory lap. Check the archives for his 1990s interviews. By then, he wasn't even answering the questions. He was just telling stories that had nothing to do with the movie he was supposed to be promoting. He'd talk about the weather, his lunch, or a girl he met in 1964. The reporters would nod like they were hearing the word of God. That's the level of control we're talking about. He had the world eating out of his hand, and he didn't even have to offer them a snack. He just offered them his presence. He was the sun, and everyone else was just a planet trying not to get burned. The lesson here is simple. If you want to be remembered, don't be nice. Be necessary. Be the person they can't look away from even when they want to. Jack did that better than anyone in history. He didn't just survive Hollywood, he conquered it. He left it behind when he was done with it, and he never looked back. That is the ultimate power move. That is how you become a legend. Not by following the script, but by throwing it in the trash and making them write a new one just for you. Every time you see that face on a screen, remember the cost. Remember the tension in those rooms. Remember the fear in the eyes of the people who tried to manage him. They failed. He won. And the world is still trying to catch its breath. Stop looking for the polished version. This is the raw reality of the man who refused to blink. This is the story of the king who never needed a crown. He just needed a pair of shades and a refusal to say thank you. If you can't handle that level of honesty, you're in the wrong place. We don't do fairy tales here. We do the facts. And the fact is, Jack Nicholson was the smartest man in every room he ever entered. He knew exactly what he was doing every single second the red light was on. And even when it was off, he was still the one in charge. Don't believe the PR. Believe the results. Look at the legacy. Look at the bank account. Look at the way people still whisper his name like he's a ghost in the machine. He's not a ghost. He's the architect of the modern star. He built the house we're all living in, and he did it with nothing but a grin and a total lack of fear. That is the secret catalyst. That is the truth. Now look at your own life. Are you playing the part they gave you, or are you waiting for the camera to find you? Jack didn't wait. Neither should you. Read between the lines and see the world for what it really is. A stage for those brave enough to take it. Jack took it all. And he's still laughing. But there is one specific night that explains everything. It wasn't a master plan. It was a knife fight. At a crowded restaurant in New York, Dennis Hopper and Rip Torn started screaming over a script. A blade was pulled. Threats were made. Rip Torn walked out, and suddenly there was an empty seat on a motorcycle in a movie called Easy Rider. Jack was just the guy standing nearby who knew how to say yes. That dinner table brawl is the secret catalyst that created the legend. Jack didn't just take the job, he used that moment of chaos to launch a hostile takeover of the entire industry. He walked onto that set, demanded a piece of the profits, and changed the way actors get paid forever. He saw the blood on the floor and turned it into a billion-dollar career. That is the ultimate power move. You don't wait for your turn. You wait for the guy in front of you to trip, and then you step over his body. Most people are too scared to admit that the biggest careers are built on top of other people's disasters. If you want the truth about who really pulls the strings in these stories, subscribe to see how deep the rabbit hole really goes. We don't care about the PR. We care about the leverage. Look at the receipts Jack left behind. 3 gold statues. A bank account totaling $500 million. A mountain of lawsuits he laughed off like they were nothing. He walked away with the money, the fame, and the absolute fear of every executive who ever tried to tell him no. That is the cost of the crown. He didn't just win. He made sure everyone else lost. And that is why he's still the only one smiling. Jack's biggest heist didn't happen on a movie set in front of a camera. It happened in a cold, quiet boardroom with a fountain pen and a contract that changed the math of fame forever. By the late 80s, everyone thought Jack was past his prime. They thought he was becoming a caricature of himself. Then came Batman. The studio offered him the role of the Joker, and instead of just taking a massive paycheck, Jack looked at the executives and decided to own them. He took a massive pay cut on his upfront salary in exchange for a percentage of the entire franchise. He didn't just want a piece of the box office, he wanted a piece of the toys. He wanted a piece of the t-shirts, the posters, the lunchboxes, and the pajamas. He gambled on himself when the industry thought superhero movies were a dying fad for kids. He was right, and they were wrong. He walked away with over $60 million for a few weeks of work, a figure that would be worth over $150 million in today's money. While other actors were memorizing lines, Jack was checking the inventory of toy stores across the globe. He broke the system by proving that the actor is more powerful than the studio if they have the guts to demand the equity. He spent the next 30 years sitting courtside at Lakers games, hidden behind those iconic black sunglasses that acted like a "Do Not Disturb" sign for the rest of the world. He wasn't just watching the game, he was the main event. He was the only person in the building allowed to scream at the refs and walk onto the court whenever he felt like it. He didn't need to act anymore because he already owned the building. He turned his life into a masterclass on how to exit the stage on your own terms.